and welcome to Sit Back with Shaq. It's a Wednesday evening right here, coming to you live on the PodHub platform. As always, thank you so much to our wonderful sponsors, Bristol Institute of Management. Thank you very much for being a part of it. We're going to give you more details on how you could obviously be a part of the July intake while we go ahead with the show. A couple of very interesting guests we have on the show with you. Of course, we're going to be talking to the Gratiaen Prize Award winner, Andrew Fidel Fernando. And once we're done with Andrew, we're also going to be crossing over live to Australia, where we have a Sri Lankan-born entertainer who's just released a music video in Australia. We're going to be taking a quick peek of the music video and also having a chat with him. Don't forget, we also have a small business segment that we have right here on Sit Back with Shaq. And if you are a small business owner and you want the platform right here, we could obviously hand it over to you and let us know exactly what your business is all about. So we're all set to go with another fantastic episode with Sit Back with Shaq, brought to you by the Bristol Institute of Management, right here, coming to you live on the PodHub platform. Gonna take a quick break and we will be back right after this. We live in a world that requires answers for complex problems. To understand the intricacy of details, we need fresh minds and individuals dedicated to answer the world's calling. At the Bristol Institute of Business Management, we are looking for more of the best minds, more free thinkers, and more problem solvers to gear them for that very call. Here's to those who want more from life, who want more from the things that actually matter. A whole new take, a whole new vision. To those who see much more in the little things, who want more from challenging the bigger things. To those who go for the goal. An arsenal of academics who strive for more. Here's to every one of them, and here's to more and more. A network of leaders who change more than the ordinary. This is much more than just an MBA. This is an MBA that will change the way you work. Welcome to the MBA from the University of the West of England. Thank you very much and welcome back to the show. This is season 2 of Sit Back with Shaq right here on the PodHub platform. Thanks so much for being a part of the show. Thank you so much to the Bristol Institute of Management for being a part of the show. We're going to cross over live and we've got Andrew Fidel Fernando waiting with us. Hi Andrew, how are you?
Hey Shaq, how's it going?
Going good, my
I'm
friend.
well, thanks.
Congratulations on the Gratiaen Prize for 2019. It's a fantastic achievement. How do you feel about it?
No, thank you. I'm very grateful. It's you don't really write books to get awards, but it's such a fantastic validation of all the hard work that goes into a book. It's when I started writing a book, I didn't expect it to be as tough as it was to produce something like that. And then at this end, to have something like an award and to have that kind of recognition is it means a lot. So I'm very, very grateful to the Gratiaen Trust that we even have an award for English writing in Sri Lanka for resident Sri Lankan writers, and also to the judges for believing in it.
Well, I've got the book right here, and this is the book that we're actually going to be giving away at the end of the conversation with Andrew. And fantastic response we got on Twitter, Andrew. We got so many people who obviously retweeted. That's all we wanted them to do. We just wanted to retweet that and see if one lucky person is going to walk off, and you're going to actually pick that person. So I'm going to put you on the spot and let you know how you need to do this. Now let's before we actually get into the book, Andrew, tell us more about your love for writing. When and how did this actually come about?
I think it was kind of a gradual thing. A lot of writers will say that, when they were very young, they started writing and they knew they were going to be right. I wasn't like that. I was kind of on a different path and then discovered writing I always knew that I was a decent writer. And then during my university years, I started writing. I was studying in Auckland in New Zealand. and I started writing for the university magazine as a hobby, and that kind of snowballed. I enjoyed writing a lot, and then there was kind of an opening at Cricinfo where they kind of asked for people who hadn't written before to maybe try their hand at something, and I sent them an email just completely out of the cold. 2 months later, I get a reply back saying, "Have a go at something, writing something for us." And then that's kind of when I really thought, well, this could be a career. This could be something that I pursue. And when I first got this job at Cricinfo, I was freelancing for them for a little while. I thought it was my dream job because I loved cricket, and
Right.
I get to go and watch cricket and be in the press box and watch every ball. I'm a huge cricket nut, obviously, from way back. But then I think as I started writing for them, as I started exploring my narrative style, started kind of widening my horizons as a writer, it became very clear to me that it was a dream job because I loved writing, not necessarily the cricket was a bonus. The writing was really what I was in love with, and that's where kind of Upon a Sleepless Isle comes from. Is that it was my first big project writing on something that wasn't about cricket, just going away from cricket and focusing on something else that was close to my heart, which is Sri Lanka, and also being able to travel around it, which is something I'd wanted to do from when I was very young.
So, what was the inspiration behind this book? Let's just jump straight into the book because, after all, the conversation is all about your Gratiaen Prize and find out exactly what was the inspiration behind this book, really.
I think I there was there are two things. There's one personal driver behind it. I think, like, I grew up during the war in the 90s, and I used to look at the Sri Lankan map and see all these places, like Mana, Trincomalee, in Yala, Kumana, Pottuil, all these kinds of places that were just so far flung, looked so fascinating. Jaffna. And I wanted to go to all these places, but of course, during the war, a lot of these places were out of bounds. They were strung up in the war, and also even the parts of the country that you could get to, so places like Nureli or Kandy, was such an arduous journey. There were checkpoints around every corner.
Yeah.
My parents were very reluctant to take us traveling, and so this was just an attempt to try and go to all these places that I dreamed of going to as a child, and trying to explore them for myself and trying to work out how those places became to be the way they were. And I thought that the best way to do that was to write a book about it, actually, because when you do write about any subject, you think about it more deeply. You try and your knowledge kind of expands. You dwell on it, and you kind of come to new insights about a place than if you were just traveling there for the sake of traveling. So that was one of the reasons. The other one was I kind of went through a stretch of reading travelogues, and I thought, why hasn't a local done this for Sri Lanka yet? And there are a couple of travelogues out there that are about Sri Lanka, but they're generally not written by Sri Lankans. So I wanted to do that myself, and I thought, why not me? And I took 7.5 weeks off work and set out.
That's exactly what I wanted to know. I mean, they're making your way around Sri Lanka in public transport and taking now, obviously, now we know you've taken 7.5 weeks away from work to get this done. And documenting every moment of it really couldn't have been an easy task. What was the preparation behind this, and how long did your travel actually take?
Yeah, so preparation-wise, I always knew that I wanted history to be a big part of it. Sri Lanka's got so much incredible history. We've just got it's being an island and being in the geographical position that we are in the Indian Ocean. We've had waves of migration from everywhere. We've had the Moor community come over from West Asia. We've had Malay communities coming over from East Asia. We've had repeated waves of migration from South India, from East India. Probably is where Sinhalese people originally came from, and they all come over at different times, and they all interact with each other. And then during kind of the height of the Anuradhapura and Naro kingdoms, it was also a huge trading hub for the region. You had Chinese traders here, you had Arab traders here, you had Thai, all these influences coming in to Sri Lanka. And one of the things that I knew that one of the strengths of the book would have to be history. And so, in preparation for the travels, I read a lot of kind of general history about Sri Lanka, what had kind of happened, so that whenever I landed up in a province or in a town or in a city, I kind of understood what the general background is. And I knew what kind of questions to ask the
Right.
locals, what kind of stories could be there,
Right.
and that was really the preparation. But otherwise, I didn't plan out the trip, man. I just I knew the first place that I wanted to go was Minaria, because the elephant gathering was happening at the time that I managed to take time off work,
Right.
and I really wanted to see it. I'd never seen it before. And then beyond that, I was just guided by where I thought good stories would come from next. And I had no plan. I knew that I wanted to hit certain spots of the island through the course of the travel, but I didn't know which order I would do them in. I winged it, and hopefully that quality of kind of a rough and ready kind of traveling experience comes through in the book as well.
Was there a moment during your travel that you were thinking to yourself, what the hell did I get myself into? Or were you like almost in a position where, to hell with this, I just want to go back home? Or did you have this thing called a writer's block? I mean, is there such a thing called a writer's block, Andrew? Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about writer's block later, but yeah, I mean, there were definitely moments during the travels when I bit off more than I could chew. Or one was I got into a trishaw accident while horrendously drunk in Kandy,
Wow.
and managed to like split my. I still got the stitches. Managed to split my forehead open, blood just gushing onto my shirt. It was, I
Ooh.
think, about 12 o'clock in the night. And then thankfully there was a trishaw driver who took care of me. There was the trishaw I was in crashed into a ditch, but then another one that was coming by the road basically took me to all the hospitals I needed to go to. Uh, and in the end, I found out that he didn't even. I mean, I don't remember this because I was actually very, very intoxicated. But he didn't take the money from me for what he did, because he was just like, you needed help. I was there to help you. And I've had so many experiences like that through the course of the book. I wouldn't have been able to do the travel the way that I did without the generosity of so many of the people that I met, and the help of so many of the people that I met. As I said, I had no plan, and I very much relied on the kindness of strangers to get me to where I needed to go. Another time, I was. There were many times. There were several times when I was riding alone, either on bicycle or on a scooter through jungle, just on little dirt tracks through jungle, when I was just like deathly afraid of elephants coming out and attacking me. So yeah, there were many kind of hairy moments. Another time on a fishing trip down south, when I basically sabotaged the whole fishing operation by being completely useless on the boat. So yeah, there are many of those incidents. In terms of writer's block, look, I come from like a journalism background where you're not really allowed to have writer's block. If
Right.
there's a story to be written, it's your job to write it in a timely fashion, and you can't afford to have writer's block. So I've I very early on, I think I learned what needed maybe to be done when it came to writer's block. I still do struggle with stories very much. In fact, I'm writing one now that I'm struggling with massively. But I know also that, like, I don't stress about it too much, because I know that eventually the words will come. It will happen. There's a great Hindi phrase that I learned from my Indian colleagues, "Ho jayega," which means it'll happen. And I just kind of say that to myself, and it, generally it works out. So I don't stress about it too much. I might take time off and go do something else for a little while if I'm struggling with a piece, but I do know that eventually it'll turn out okay.
What did you personally gain from writing this book, apart from your travel, apart from the fact that you had the great opportunity of visiting almost all parts of Sri Lanka that you wanted to? Personally, at the end of it, what did you actually gain from writing this book?
I mean, from the travel itself and from the research, just a huge understanding of how how we came to be, we came to be the country that we are now. I think I kind of understand the moving parts of Sri Lanka a lot better now for having had this experience. What's happening in the north, what's happening in the east, what's happening in the south, and how all of that intersects and interacts with each other. What, you know, how the hill country community, the plantation community came to be, how the hill country Tamils, how maybe the Moor community, what happened to them during various parts of their history, how the Malay community kind of interacts and intersects with both of those. Yeah, so I think that understanding and knowledge was something that I would not have had I not just delved really deep into not just the history and the politics, but also just had conversations with people. All along my travels, I unfortunately wasn't able to sort of name everybody that I met and talked to, but there were so many people, just, you know, even sitting on a bus, waiting for a transport the owners of a guest house I was staying in, just someone I met on the road. So I had so many fascinating conversations that informed the book. I think it just gave me an appreciation of my country that I couldn't have otherwise had. The other thing is, I think it made me optimistic. As I said, I was done so many good turns by so many people in so many different parts of the country. And I mean, I've traveled for cricket, I've traveled around the world, and that's very rare. Like what we have in Sri Lanka, this kind of generosity of spirit towards people who you know are, you know, traveling by themselves, or even just people who might, you know, need some assistance from you.
Right.
That is very, very rare. And from all the places I've traveled in, I think that it's also, I mean, I have to check this by saying I'm a man. I'm also a Sinhala speaking man. So my experience is not going to be universal to everybody. But the experience that I have here compared to the experience that I've have elsewhere traveling, it really made me optimistic about Sri Lanka and kind of course, like there are aspects of our politics and aspects of our present situation that are hugely frustrating, that are hugely saddening, that make us all annoyed and frustrated. But I think I always remember the optimism that I felt at the end of my travels about you know, what Sri Lanka could eventually become.
We actually spoke to somebody who you've spoken to before, who actually has a podcast right here on PodHub, Deepti Kotian, and she's absolutely loves the book and wanted to actually get her view on it and see, just give us a very short review for everybody who's hasn't actually sort of got a hold of the book as yet. This is what Deepti had to say. Check this out.
Andrew's book, Upon a Sleepless Isle, reminded me of some of my favorite travel writing, like Notes from a Small Island by Bill Bryson, or Pico Iyer's Video Nights in Kathmandu. What gives the book an edge is the fact that the itinerary that Andrew follows in the course of his travels around the island is guided by events in the news. So he picks and chooses the places he's going to visit, driven by this journalistic curiosity to understand the bigger picture and to get a closer look at the stories behind the stories. So you really get a bird's eye view of the social and political history of the island in recent times. The writing is very funny, and the humor keeps getting better with every chapter, so it really is an entertaining read. What also appealed to me was the copious amounts of research into Sri Lankan history. So as you read, you discover little known or probably unknown nuggets of stories and, you know, from history which you hadn't heard of before. So that too gives the book a certain amount of depth and richness.
That's Deepti, of course. She hosts a podcast right here on PodHub. Check it out because she actually features quite a few authors and some fantastic books on that. She talks about your writing in this, Andrew. Now, you obviously, like you said, professionally, you're a sports writer. In your opinion, was it difficult to actually change styles in your writing? I mean, is there such a thing as different writing styles? You're a sports writer, or to what you have exhibited in this book, was it hard to actually shift gears?
I mean, this was a much bigger challenge in a way because it was so unfamiliar to me. But then I also think that the best sports writing, my favorite sports writing that I really enjoy, is not necessarily about the sport itself. Like if you think about cricket as a game, it's 22 people playing a bat and ball game. There's no real reason why we should be interested in watching, Angelo Matthews bowl to Chris Gale necessarily, right? Like they're just two people playing a bat and ball game. What gives that tussle value is what we bring to it, what we as fans, spectators bring to. We ascribe value to that contest. Right. And that says more about us, really, than it does about the actual cricket. So the best sports writing is always aware of that and always kind of understands that sports fills a gap in people's lives. Sports performs a role in society, in nations. And so I often felt that when I was writing for Cricket Info about cricket, I was writing about Sri Lanka, but just using the lens of cricket. And for this book, it was more about writing about Sri Lanka more directly and using some different lenses, using a historical lens, using a traveler's lens, anthropological lenses at various points, humorous, trying to find things about our history and our culture that are funny and trying to present that as well. So it wasn't, in some ways, it wasn't really a big transition for me. Though I will say the challenge of writing about Sri Lanka more directly was and writing about politics and how history works. That was a much greater challenge than I generally faced in writing about cricket. Though there are also very, very challenging cricket pieces to write as well.
Now, let's talk about the support system at home. I mean, it couldn't have been just easy for you to just pick up and leave 7.5 weeks, leaving a family back and knowing exactly what's going to go on. What was the support system at home like? And while you were soaking out the fun, so to say, traveling around, but your family was at home, how did that work out for you?
Yeah, so while the travel was actually happening, it was just me and my wife. So we didn't have, we now have a 2.5-year-old. But the travel bit where it was just, I just had to convince my wife, and she's kind of very understanding of my crazy flights of fancy, and she'll kind of humor me. And so she was like, okay, fine, you can, I'm happy for you to take off if that's something that you really want to do. She did come and join me on weekends quite often, and that's in the book as well. She was working in Colombo, and then when she got some time off, she'd come and join me for parts of the trip. So that was okay. It kind of worked out where I guess we're used to spending time apart, because for my cricket writing job, I generally travel a lot as well. What was cool, though, is writing can often be a very lonely pursuit. It's just you on the computer. And then while I was writing the majority of the book, my wife was actually pregnant. She was very kindly just said, you don't have to write elsewhere. You can come and write in our room while I'm asleep. So it kind of helped make it seem less like a lonely pursuit. She's been there for me the whole time, and it was without that kind of support. And then if like a night of write, I generally write in the nights or in the early mornings. And if a writing session hadn't gone well, I'll be kind of moping around the house in a sour mood, and she'd have to deal with that. So there was a lot that she tolerated, and it was definitely a team effort.
Wonderful. Just a final few minutes with Andrew right here on Sit Back with Shaq. Now here's a question that I wanted to ask you, Andrew. Now the book's been out for a while now. You obviously bagged the Gratiaen Prize, which is a fantastic honor. I've got two questions for you. Number one, which was the standout bit of the book based on readers' reviews? And number two, which was a bit of a bore, again, based on readers' reviews?
Mm-hmm. So standout bit of the book, I think the cool thing is it's resonated with different audiences in different ways, right? So I think it's been weird because this book has been read both in India and Sri Lanka. So we published it in India. And the Indian reviews tend to focus kind of like on the first half of the book about which is kind of lighter and funnier and less, I guess, like it doesn't kind of delve into serious issues in as kind of direct a way as the second half of the book does. And I think for a lot of Sri Lankan audience, the second half of the book has been more rewarding. I think from the feedback that I've got, a lot of people like this. Once I start going to the north and trying to explore, what's happening in the post-war north, that kind of stuff, and then kind of coming around the east coast and into the south, that kind of stuff became kind of a little bit. The book becomes a little bit denser and heavier in the second half, whereas the first half is kind of a bit more jokey and lighthearted. And so it's been weird because Indian readers have often said like the first half of the book was amazing. The second half, like without knowing like the full context and not living in Sri Lanka, it maybe wasn't quite as interesting. Whereas Sri Lankan readers have often said, the second half of the book is really where it got like real. Like they enjoy the first half, but the second half, the chapters on Mana and Jaffna and and on Batiklo and all those kinds of places were kind of stood out to them. So it's been fascinating. My favorite personal favorite chapter is Mana, just because it's a part of the country that I'd never been to, and it was a part of the country that really surprised me. And then also in the southeast, in the kind of Yala, Kumano region of the country, that was also I also encountered lots of surprises there. So those are probably my two favorite bits. And bore, yeah, no one's been unkind enough to tell me that any bits of it has been boring so far. So either they're they haven't found it boring, or that people are being very, very kind.
That's wonderful. I'm just going to see if we can pull up one of the reviews that we actually have for you that we pulled up from I think it's the Hindustan Times. I think it's going to come up on your screen right now, and just the last bit of the review. And that's all. Basically, the funniest anecdote involves the author being chased by dogs for the entire duration of his stay in a village. Though at one point it feels a little stretched, the punchline makes up for its extraordinary length. Other hilarious parts is right at the start of the book when Fernando describes his attempt to extract national identity basically from the Sri Lankan bureaucracy. This is like you basically said, in terms of the Indian review is completely different to what the Sri Lankan have sort of absorbed it so far. So if you guys really haven't sort of got a hold of the book, by all means, please do. Andrew, we've got one final section that we actually do with all our guests. It's called the Final Five. And these questions could be a bit uncomfortable, but you need to be answering them as comfortable as you possibly can and truthful. Before we get into that, I just want to warn you, before we get into that, give us more details on where everyone can actually purchase the book, Andrew.
Yeah, it's at Vijayatha stores at Barefoot. Takas.lk has it. Also, Pereira Hussain, if you're ordering online, takas.lk and Pereira Hussain have it. But otherwise, your Vijayatha and Barefoot stores will have it.
Wonderful. All right, we just got final few minutes that we have left with Andrew. Andrew, okay, we've got your final five. This is your final five, and just 5 straightforward questions. Let's see how you tackle them right here. Here we go with your first question on the show, right? This is what we need to hear from you. Let's have the first question up on the show right now. And the question, of course, is, let's see. What is the most unethical practice in the publishing industry?
Oh, unethical practice. Nothing massively springs to mind. I wouldn't say I've come across anything hugely unethical, at least in my kind of publishing journey. I guess the fact that you need to have the access. I guess the access is a bit tough for Sri Lankan writers, especially. We Sri Lankan English writers, we write for English readers in Sri Lanka are a small audience, so you need to go to like kind of India to get noticed by a decent a publisher of kind of major clout. And for a lot of Sri Lankan writers, that's rough. So I wouldn't necessarily call that unethical, but it is a definite disadvantage to being a Sri Lankan writer, is that you have to look for agents in a country that doesn't necessarily understand your work, and thankfully I was done a huge turn because I wrote for Cricinfo, which has kind of a strong Indian presence, and I was put in touch with people. But I think a lot of other Sri Lankan writers have had that trouble.
Okay, here's your second question. Does a big ego help or hurt writers?
I think it can cut both ways. So one of the big things that writers face is self-doubt. And I think I've seen writers who have huge egos who just plow through that self-doubt, and self-doubt is not an issue for them because they have such huge egos. I come from the other kind of end of the spectrum almost, where I try not to. I'm not saying that I don't have an ego. I definitely do, but I try not to have such an ego. And that, I think, can make you aware of when you have a huge ego. Sometimes there's one way you do things. Sorry, there's a train going past
That's
my
all right. Don't
door.
worry about it. We're as natural as we can be.
So I mean, sometimes when you have a big ego, you have like one way of doing things, and you're 100% convinced that that way is the only way. Whereas when you don't have one so much, you're aware of doing new things, adding new things to your writing, seeing someone else's writing and being inspired by it, rather than thinking you're the kind of bee's knees and you're the only good writer. So I think there are good writers who have big egos, and there are good writers who don't have egos. It's just about how you manage them, and being aware of kind of, I think, yeah, the writers who don't have big egos are more aware of their weaknesses, and I think have more ability to improve. So yeah, if I had to pick one of having a big ego or not having a big ego, I'd say definitely lean towards the not having a big ego side, and try and be as self-aware as you can.
Okay. Was there anything that you actually edited out of the book? Would you be able to tell us what it was?
Yeah, I mean, there were lots of jokes. There was one I was telling a friend recently. There was this. Everyone knows the story of King Harshepa, who built Sigiriya. He imprisoned his father. He took over the kingdom forcibly from his father. And the way he killed his father, according to the Mahamansa, actually, is that he took him. He walled him up. He walled him up alive. And one of the jokes that I made, his father was just walled up alive and left to starve, essentially. One of the jokes I made was, Sri Lanka invented the first ever nursing home, and that didn't make it into the book. So there was one joke that didn't quite make the cut.
All right. What's the one thing that you would actually give up to become an even better writer?
One thing I would give up.
Yeah. Something that's
what would I
possibly
give
holding
up?
you back, something that's holding you back to become an even better writer than you are right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wish I had more time to read.
Right.
I think easy one. Like, I'd have to cover a lot of news for Cricinfo, which can be quite time consuming and is difficult. It's like news. I don't enjoy covering news. So, calling up, going to press conferences, calling up, officials, all that kind of stuff. I'm not a huge fan of that. So I would happily give that up to give myself more time to focus on kind of feature writing and the kind of writing that I really enjoy. I would happily give that up. Yeah.
All right, here's your final question, my friend. If you are to blow your own trumpet, the book, if you are to blow your own trumpet about the book to someone who's got no clue of who you are or any clue about where Sri Lanka is, how would you do it? In other words, how would you market this book to someone who's got no idea what it's about?
Oh gosh, good question. I guess what I told you earlier, the best story I find is the personal story about me wanting to travel around the country when I was young and not being able to because the war was going on, and then finding out as an adult that my country had suddenly become this global tourist hotspot, and I hadn't been to all these places that, like, all these foreigners were suddenly descending on all these places that I had wanted to go to since I was a kid. And then, just telling them that story. I think that would probably be my pitch if I had to pick a pitch.
Alright. Okay, Andrew, so basically we were giving away this book on the show today, and what basically
Okay.
wanted to do was on Twitter, we just wanted to retweet it, and we ran it on all our social media platforms. We've got a tremendous response so far. I also saw somebody who's actually
Oh,
tweeted saying that
fantastic.
you've actually retweeted this also because you wanted to win the book yourself, something that you actually won a prize for. So yeah, I saw that tweet also. But I think we've got over 100 names coming in so far. I'm just going to randomly tell you to pick a number, any number between 1 to 100, and the name that corresponds that number is going to be the person who walks off with this particular book that we have for you, and which will be personally autographed by the Gratiaen Prize award-winning author Andrew Fidel Fernando. Give us a number, my friend.
Let's go with 77.
77. Okay, 77. Let's find out what the name is. It's going to be 77. Somebody's going to basically quickly give me the name right now. So hang in there as we'll all be just chilling out. What's the name? All right, we're all waiting for the name to come on because 77. Let's see, 77. We got a name? We got a name for 77? We have a name for 77? Let me see who this is. This is, well, we really don't know who this is, but it just is at the _ RMT. The turtle moves, right? So yeah, that's all.
Okay.
This is your profile picture, by the way, just in case you can see. This is the individual who's actually walk off with the book. We'll tweet them and find out what their real name is, because you certainly don't want to be making it out to the _ RMT turtle moves. Yeah, so find out what the name is. Anyway, thanks so much. So you're a lucky winner, whoever you are. You're going to walk off with this book, Upon a Sleepless Isle. Fantastic book. Lots of great reviews on this book. Once again, Andrew, congratulations on the Gratiaen Prize Award for 2019. Massive deal. And firstly, I also thank you very much for accepting our invitation and coming on the show. We had such an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Loved being here. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries, my friend. When are we expecting the next one to come out?
Good question. I have started working on it, so I'll keep you updated as we go along. Books take a long time.
I'm sure they do. Thank you so much, Andrew, and have yourself a good night. We'll speak to you soon. All right. Thanks so much, Andrew Fernando, right here, coming to you live from wherever he is. That's exactly what we do. It's Sit Back with Shaq. Thanks so much for being a part of the show. Congratulations once again to Andrew Fernando, the Gratiaen Prize Award winner for 2019. Gonna take a break as we cross over live to Australia for your entertainment segment right here on Sit Back with Shaq. We'll be back right after this.